Okay. Well, hello everyone. This is Lennon, and today we are getting joined by Kristen from Over the Moon Academy. Thank you for being here, Kristen.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I first heard of you on Instagram. I came upon your feed and I saw a deck being presented, and it didn't look like a deck on the market. And I realized you made that deck. And
Yeah.
I immediately went to your Ko-fi page and started stalking it, and I realized that you not only made this one deck that I saw, but you've made so many creations. So I guess my first question to you would be, how did Over the Academy start? Did it start with deck creations, or did it start as a class or something?
That's a really good question. It really did start as a deck. I used to go by on Instagram by Over the Moon Oracle cards. That was my first account. And then I switched over to just OTM Academy. So I started making decks in probably 2013, 2014. And my first deck that I made, I mean, I was just making decks for myself, and it was called, I named it Over the Moon, like Oracle cards. So I really was only planning to make that one deck like that.
It did not stop there. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have really a vision to do anything more. So it was more just me talking about my deck and showing the decks. And then I had started making a couple of other decks, but I really didn't think it was going to be as many decks as it has become. So my original Instagram was just Over the Moon Oracle cards, where I was just showing that deck and maybe a couple others that I had created and put into my printer studio, like shop space for people if they wanted to purchase it. And then kind of over the years, what I really love to do is teach. And so I've been, teaching in various areas for probably 20, 25 years. And
Wow.
so I started just doing more, not necessarily more teaching, but I was just incorporating more classes too. So I just decided just to make it Over the Moon Academy. And I still make decks, but the Over the Moon Academy is the overarching thing with classes and decks and whatever else I decide to do.
Yes, I noticed that you don't only make decks. Actually, it's more so like all your links tend to go towards not only your decks, but creations dealing with any kind of divination too. So it's like well-rounded. It's like when I noticed, I went to the page for the decks, like that's how it started. Right. But then I realized that there was so much else. There's charm casting and things that you've made that aren't related to decks. Okay, deck divination, but more so that it could be any of that. And like vision boards. I love the vision board oracle that you made. I think that is an incredibly ingenious thing, is to have cards that you can put all together and make a vision board without having to cut up magazines, and
right.
That's how it started. So actually, I wanted to share something that you inspired me to do on your Instagram. You shared this maze and it was blank. You get it like free stock, and you had put like positive words. And
I actually put like dream symbols in there.
Yeah. And I knew that I wanted some words to like for bullet points, I guess. And they're more, like you said, kind of positive, like almost affirmations like. And I've been using this to charm cast, but also to just where my eyes taking me, kind of like a zone out. And it really has been helping. So this is inspired by you. So I love that.
Oh, great. I love that you did it. Yeah. So divination is my main thing. That's what I've been doing. Anything around symbols really has been kind of what I've been interested in since I was a child. So everything for me just goes back to divination. So I've just, whether it is cards are my favorite, form, but I would say anything that I can read, I'm going to be interested in, learning more or figuring out some new ways to play with that.
Yeah. Do you think that Well, do you think that cards are easier for you to make? I know that one of my questions was, do you feel like your creations in general are challenging? Or I guess more so to the point is, do you think one of them was more challenging than the others? Like, did it take you the longest, or was one of them just really like you had the idea spark and then you just couldn't manifest it the way you saw?
Um, I'm sure there's probably some things that have been like a little bit more challenging, but I will say for me, first of all of this is play. So if it's too challenging to me, it's like work and it's no longer play. So I really would just let that one go. But there's different things that I've done like for the first time, like a deck that I drew, like the pep talk deck, or the Oracle of the Ancients was the first time I really did like digital collage like that. So there's certain things that are kind of, I wouldn't really use the word challenging. They're just things that I haven't done before and I've got to figure them out. But I like that kind of challenge. Like I like figuring stuff out. So that's not really a problem. I find that doing the different kinds of oracles, like cards, to me are easy just because I've made so many cards. But I really like to do different things with cards, like the magic puzzle cards that I do that are just like they're 9 squares and you put them together. So that was probably challenging, figuring out how to do it on the computer and matching them up, and so that you could print them out and cut them out and work with them. But like I said, for me, it's kind of like a puzzle in figuring it out. It's like, how I want an oracle that does this. How can I get it to happen? So
yeah, which actually the Oracle of Ancients was the very first deck that I actually purchased.
thank you.
I've downloaded several others, but when I purchased Oracle of Ancients, it was because after going to your Ko-fi page and noticed it and read about it, I had a dream about it on one of the cards, and I thought, okay, I'm sorry, I just have to have this. And it's not like it was not some like divine thing. It was more like you said, I was drawn to this playful nature. But it leads me into a question that I wanted to ask you about this deck, and I'll show it on screen while I'm asking. You share openly where you get some of the free images from, like Pixabay and I think it's Pixabay or Pixabay.
Pixabay, yeah.
And it's fascinating to go on there because I literally could get stuck on that website and look at all of the free images that they have. I mean, look at this intergalactic shaman. Oh,
yeah.
I mean,
and most of those are from the Library of Congress, primarily from one collection. I want to say Carpenter, but I can't remember. It was a photographer who traveled and took those photos, and I liked the way that he took the photos. Like I like the perspective that he had when photographing these people, and so I use predominantly just that collection. There's another collection that's kind of similar, so I use those photos, but those are free. That collection is public,
But you judge them so well. I mean, they look so good with all of your digital manipulations. And I wanted to say that in terms of creations in general, I noticed that you share where you get some of these like free images that that you've made this from. But would you say that you like puzzling it all together, like you said, with digital images, or do you like more of the abstract? I know I'm really drawn to your Zen Oracle, which I've just downloaded, which I'm excited to have, and your newest thing, which is your campfire. I mean, I love to camp, so it's gonna be the next thing that I download when it comes out. So do you like the more drawn or the abstract look, or are you more drawn to the actual pictures? I guess, like, what's your preference of that?
I don't know that I have a preference. So since I'm starting really from the divining perspective, the art is secondary to what the deck concept is. So some art, abstract might lend itself better to the deck concept. Or, you know, with that one, I use, like I said, the predominant image is really those vintage portraits. And then I wanted to juxtapose it with there are Pixabay images, but those are more of they're more contemporary images of the galaxy, solar system, you know, kind of
Right.
that type of thing. So I
Like,
really
'cause
wanted that.
that's like the backstory of
Right.
the
Yeah.
cards, the cards meaning. I
Yes.
love I love how you talk about the cards and the guidebook, or it's, you know, it's like a little page of
Right. Right.
cards. And I love that some of the things came about after you made the deck, like the third the third, I think that was the third.
Third heaven.
Yeah,
Probably.
and you spoke of, didn't even know Astarta was a dead star, I think,
Right.
something
It
like
was.
that, and you realize that after the fact, and it just seemed to be so synchronistic.
Mhm.
The coming about of the deck, and then learning things after it, and it becomes kind of a learning tool there. And I think that that's what's sacred about divination in general, is that you start playing, and throwing the card slinging, and then you learn and grow with divination. And it is like more of a symbol hunt, you know, like that's what I love about, I'm a tarot and oracle person. So when I sling the cards, I like looking at the symbols and what all it could mean, because it's going to
Right.
mean something different for everyone. So in terms of the process, I know that there seems to be a lot going into some of these. Like, you make the deck, and it could be for play, but then you attach certain things like songs.
Yeah.
I know this is your
Yeah.
soul,
Soul
and
music oracle. Yes.
I love this. I grew up on this music. I know I just love pulling cards, and I know that you say that you could just go off the titles, you know,
Right.
but I actually like to go and listen to the song. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so I love that you attach certain things to the cards. And would you say that that is automatically a part of the process, or is that an afterthought? Like, do you already have the poems, or already have the songs, like, before you make the said deck, or do you
I
make
guess it
the deck?
depends on, yeah, it probably depends on the deck. Like with that one, I decided to include a playlist kind of after, you know, I decided to share it on Ko-fi, just because I think, like I said, I think you can use the titles, the song titles. I really picked those for song titles, not necessarily for songs. I tried to make the deck um, you know, versatile, but more from the title of the song. So not necessarily what the song is actually about if you listen to it.
Right,
But it
right,
occurred to me that some people will want to listen to the song, or maybe they've never heard the song before. And if you need more information, the song may help you to, you know, understand the card. So I just put the playlist together, and also it helps people know what those songs are. You know, it's different titles. You may have like the same song title, but it's like I wanted you to know what version of that song was really resonating with me in terms of the deck. So
right.
certain things are kind of like that was more of an afterthought. But when I do, for example, a poetry oracle deck, the poetry, or where I'm getting the poetry, is, is really first. I mean, I may find the images, but to me the poetry is kind of the most important piece of that. So
For sure.
yeah, I just want to think, you know, I think about where am I getting it from, or where, you know, what types of poems do I want to use.
Yeah, I know that my first download was the women's history oracle, and it's so tiny.
Yes.
When I did it, it became so tiny. I don't know if it's supposed to be that.
That's the size. Yeah.
But I mean, I know the camera's backwards, so the words are backwards, but some of the images are evocative. I mean, and knowing that the titles of these relate to a poem, or are
Mhm.
they're words from a poem, and then
Right.
you give the list of the poem, you know, the poems that you use in the description. Are these the Library of Congress images as well, or are these some?
They're I think a mix of that, and there's also another resource, the New York Public Library digital collections.
Wow.
So some of them come from there too. So I really wanted to show a real diversity of women. So I just kind of wanted to pull them from different places, and I kept their like original the color of the photo, because some photos are sepia. There's actually just a couple that are actually in color. Like most of them are black and white or sepia or toned.
Mhm.
So
Like this, yeah, it's beautiful.
yeah, right. So I wanted, all of those things are ideas that I think of, things that are part of me creating the deck. And then the poems, like I said, are to the hardest part, really. I find that a lot of people focus on the art in decks, but I really spend more time with words, I think. To me, the art usually comes easily in terms of what I want or the vision for what I want, but the words take longer. So, finding all the poems, and they're all considered feminist poems by women.
Mhm.
And just finding the right poems with the right phrases, and because those are just kind of like little snippets or phrases from the poems, but they have to be evocative, they have to be emotional, they have to be descriptive.
And they
So
are.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
it's
I love reading and writing poetry.
Mhm.
And what I found with decks like this that have this connection already to poetry, you go and you read the poems, of course. Like say I pull 3, and I'll go and read the poems, and then it'll make me think of something, and maybe I'll write a poem, or it'll lead me to another poem that I've heard that I'll go look up. And I think that what I've learned with using this particular deck is that I can use the keywords that are already linked to poetry to write my own,
right.
and use the images too. But yeah, but I get that feel from this deck that the images, yes, you want to feel something from the image,
Yeah.
and there be a link to these, seemingly all ancient women. I feel a divine ancestor presence within the deck too for me, and a sacred pull to these women of lost time, and it draws me in. And I can use the words first, though. The words come first. I do get that feel from the deck that the words pop out, and then I go to the poem, and then I can sit with the image later on after the fact, but that mostly I'm getting the words to generate something creative within myself. I think that it's become almost this conjuring for me to pull out my own femininity within, for myself. And I mean, I do love that it's a great, like the images are great and it's diverse. So you're seeing it in a real world sense. Okay. Not, you don't get that anymore. You don't get that at all, hardly, in decks these days. So I'm grateful to that. And I guess it leads me into that I got this actually for free.
Mhm.
Okay. It was a free download. Now it's not for free anymore. You
Yeah.
have to purchase it on the Ko-fi page. But I really am curious why you don't charge. Okay. Because you really could. And I know that this is you said this before, that this is mostly play for you and it's fun for you. It's not necessarily a job or work,
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to why, I guess did you choose to do it for free, or is it more so you just want it out there?
Yeah. So the reason why you got it free, you probably got it within the time period that it was for free. So I think it was maybe free for 10 days or something. Then I put in my Ko-fi shop, which starts at $3, and you can give whatever you want. So I really haven't found much difference between putting a price tag on something and allowing people to give what they want. Actually, I have found the difference. People give more when you let them give more than what they want, I found. So that's one reason that it's free, but it's not really my main reason. For me, I don't really want to think about pricing or marketing or promoting or selling, or like that interrupts my creative flow. So when I'm making things, like there's an imaginary pile here of me making things. Like it's up to here right now. Okay. So I'm just trying to get things off of that pile. So I don't really waste time thinking about, should I charge for this? How much should I charge? What's the price? I'm just getting it. It comes down, okay, from spirit. I do the thing and I get it out. And so Ko-fi really allows me to do that. I've really enjoyed working and doing things on Ko-fi. I used to be on Patreon, but I do like Ko-fi better because it allows me to do that. And it's like, I'll just put it here and y'all can do whatever you want to with it. I have lots of ways for people to support me, even if you don't like the deck. I only want people to get my things if they really enjoy them, if they're going to bring them joy. But if you just want to support me, you can always just give a donation. Right. So that's why, like, I'm really clear about that. There's lots of ways you can support. For me, Ko-fi is part of my creative flow. Okay. And so I just, like I said, I'm just working on this pile that just.
And that's your done pile. Like when you shut down your.
These are they're done in my mind, mm-hmm. but they're like things that I am still working on sometimes. But for me, this pile, like there's lots of things that people don't ever see that, so before I found Ko-fi, I was kind of like, this pile is just building up and I don't have a place to put it. I'd much rather put it somewhere so that people can enjoy it. Because otherwise, like I said, it is play for me. I'm going to enjoy it. But it's kind of like, it just feels like these things just kind of building up over here as if it's a literal pile, but it's not. It's like an imaginary pile for me. So Ko-fi to me is my part of my creative flow. And then certain things I do have in my printer studio shop space, but those are really things that I feel like need to be printed at a printer that you cannot print on your personal home computer printer. Right. The things that I share in Ko-fi are like line art types of things that I think are a little easier for you to print, because I just have a regular DeskJet printer. Right. And I feel like if I can print it out, you can probably print it out too.
And I downloaded them and emailed them right to Office Max and printed it on cardstock,
Right.
And then of course I used a paper, like a guillotine, yes. And a rounder, a corner rounder, right. And then and it's easy to just. And this turned out so good. Like, I love this little thing, and it's so easy to shuffle. And like you said, it's because of the way it's drawn. It is probably easier to print it like at home or even through office, office staff.
Right, exactly.
But definitely something like this, I'm so glad is it.
Yeah, you got to take that to write a professional printer, right? Anything that's like that. It's got too much detail in it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the ink would just splatter everywhere.
Right. You use up all of your ink to print it.
Right.
Yeah. So I do think about those things, right? That's the difference between Ko-fi and like printer studio stuff.
And that's so cool to think that it's part of your creative, because now I'm thinking of this imaginary pile of creations that you have. And then when you finish something, it goes right to your Ko-fi page because it's like a done deal. It's like, okay, this is for you guys now. I'm on to the next thing,
Yes, and that's exactly, I'm just working on the next thing off of, like I said, all of these things are just channeled from spirit. I don't have a plan necessarily for things that I do. It's not like, oh, this year I want to do this type of deck. I don't have that anymore. For me, Oracle of the Ancients was really my last deck in the sense of decks that I had in mind. I wanted to do a tarot deck and I wanted to do a Lenormand deck and, deck ideas that I had. So now it's just whatever comes up. I'm like, hey, that looks neat. I want to try that, or I'll do whatever. But like I said, there's always an idea like that. So, when I don't have an easy way to share it because that's why I make everything for myself. I share it with the public. And so when I don't have a place to share it easily, it creates this, like I said, it feels like there's a pile of stuff just like looming over me. So
and spirit shouting at you. Like,
yes, like get this out of here.
Pick something off the pile and make it for us, okay? Please.
Right.
So I do feel like spirit the light comes and you have to be able to open the door, because sometimes opportunities pass you by and it's like, you want to be able to grasp on to some of that flow and that energy. And I feel so strongly about divination in general. And like I said, sometimes divination isn't just like, fortune or future telling. It's more so symbol hunting, and it's more play, and it's more helping me with my creative flow. Like I'll sling cards to generate my own flow. I paint, I'll use that to get ideas of painting and to help the spark come along even more. And I've used cards for so many things. Now you make, like you said, spirit comes, this light comes, and you've got a whole pile of things that you make. Is there a form of divination that's your favorite, or maybe is it that you don't make yourself, or that you won't? Is there a form of some kind of spiritual tool that you don't make that you like or is a favorite?
I would say that I cannot make a storytelling deck. So I read tarot primarily intuitively now through what I call storytelling decks. So those are most of the decks that I buy, where they have a character, a scene, action, where you can just look at the card and tell a story, even if you didn't know what tarot was. And for me, it seems like you really have to be able to draw to do that well. Mm-hmm. I've seen lots of different decks. I have lots of different, I have parted ways with over 200 decks in the last 25 years. So I've seen lots of different decks, but to me, the ones where I can see that scene and story and they're illustrated, they're not collage, they're not, abstract, they're not all these other things. So that's probably the one thing, if I could draw better, I would do like a storytelling deck.
Well, your cards tell stories though. And I feel like there's a deck, well, it wasn't a deck. You did this spirit or the sprite lit book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those things tell stories. I think that like your Black History Month oracle and your Women's History oracle, and you just using like actual pictures, like these are real pictures. These aren't things that you drew. And it would, I know that it may seem, to me, it seems like, of course, it would be nice to sit and draw a story. But the fact that you're using real people, I think that links to it's a worldly story that you're telling then. And the spirit guides are telling you that these people need their story told. And I feel that. I feel these people's pictures, presence, and I'm hearing their story offhandedly through my own spirit. And I think that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing, that when we see decks that show real people, to me, of course, I love tarot. I love looking at tarot and the drawn, painted, beautiful oil paintings that people put out, and I'm drawn to those. But then I look at decks like with real people on them, and it sends me down almost memories of ancestors. It links me to stories that I didn't know, and that I want to know, and that I want to hold some accountability for humanity with these oracles. So I feel a divine presence within them. So I wanted you to know that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I feel a presence within these decks that holds these real faces. So don't just think that these aren't stories, because I think they're telling.
Oh no.
No, they're telling stories.
Oh yeah, I think any deck can tell a story, but when I'm
True.
talking something very specific, and it's funny because I do have people telling me that about the, like women's history oracle, Black history oracle, people's, using these vintage portraits. I don't actually like, that is not how I see them, but I recognize that a lot of people are really channeling the people in them. They're like mediumistic, connecting to those people. What I'm doing is really matching what I see, the way that they're posed, their facial expressions, just the energy of them with the words, the keyword, the poem phrase. So I'm doing my best to make those connections, but I really think it's wonderful. And people are like, I think I got a question once, and it's like, well, how do you read? She was talking about the ancestor deck that I have. And she's like, how do you read these without reading the people? And I was like, I don't read people. I'm not a medium. So,
Right.
but that, that was the first time it occurred to me that it's like, oh, people are reading these people, that the actual people, their energy. So I think that's like another layer, that I don't really think about that layer when I'm making them. I'm more making them in terms of the connection that I'm seeing, just like with their eyes and my eyes. But definitely there's a lot of other layers there.
Okay. Now, in terms of deck creation, okay, or any divination, because you, like I said, you do so much, so many more things than just cards, like vision boards or charm casting thing. I mean, you're doing so much anyway. I don't know when you sleep, okay, but you're just popping out the creations. What would be your magnum opus? What would be your dream project to work on? Or is it something sitting at that's always at the bottom of your to-do pile that you're talking about that never quite gets done? Or is it more so that you're going with the flow, the energy flow of spirit to get all your ideas out? Or is there a big project that's sitting on the shoulders that?
No, there isn't a big project as far as I know. I do everything as it comes. So even the pile that I was talking about, it's not really, I mean, sometimes it's a pile of ideas just because I'm just doing like one at a time. I just try to focus on one thing at a time. But the pile is more like I have these things that I've made, but I don't know where to put them. I don't know how to put them out there, or whatever. So like I said, Oracle of the Ancients to me was like my last, that probably was it, because when I started it about 2 years before it came out, before I actually published it. It was technically done for 2 years, and it took me that long, again, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with it and things like that, having to create some type of guide for it. And the guides really take me a long time. The making of the oracle does not take time, but typically I have run out of sacral energy to make the guide. So it's like, that's the part that, is usually kind of falling behind. So I would not say that I have any big plans or projects or anything. I don't really work like that. I just, I'll see something, I'll be like, oh, that's cool, let's make it. And then I make it up to the top.
Yes, on that note, okay, I went to your Instagram the other day and I noticed that you had a cut up deck, like cut all up.
Oh yeah.
And the writer deck, and it was actually sent to you from someone. And
yes.
You were looking through all the windows and things. I got it was just like a spark, like you were shooting off a lightning bolt to me. Okay. So I got a circle cutter and I just started gnawing at the deck. I butchered the thing. I had this very cheap Rider Waite, and that, overall is replaceable if I had to, but I've got a couple that are like sacred. So those something separate. And I remember butchering it and looking for the windows. I made a video. It's not out yet on the channel, but it's going to come out. And the windows, there were so many cool interpretations with the circles having looking at two of them, stuck together. And what I ended up doing was realizing that the cut up deck didn't really work the structural integrity of the deck changed. So it's not shuffleable really anymore.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing was just keeping all of the circles.
Yes. Yeah.
And I realized I've got it in this like organza bag. This is such a cute deck all by its little lonesome. Like
right.
the window concept was the spark that I got from just seeing it on your feed. And I got so inspired to cut up a deck. I mean, that's never happened to me before. And I realized that what it was probably doing was trying to get me to a place where I could just have a circle deck, a tiny deck that I can cast down like tokens,
Right, exactly.
And it changes the entire dynamic. And I was so inspired that, is that often how it comes? Like when you get a spark of something that you see and you're willing to annihilate something to make something else happen?
Yes, I was going to say, first of all, I take no responsibility for you butchering your deck. That is how it's. I think if you pay attention to all of the symbols and the things that are coming at you, you'll see threads and connections. So Leah with Broken Wing Tarot, I hope I did not mess up her IG handle. They made the circle deck. Like I saw them doing, I was like, oh, look, circle deck, just like you made. And then they sent me just just some different things for deck making, really, just being really generous and lovely. And part of what was in that stash was the I think I have it here somewhere, where the hole. So that's what they did the same thing, just cut out the circles. And so there's just these pieces with holes. And what's funny was around the same exact time, I'm a guest instructor for Melissa Lucia's Deep Play Divination class. And she was in the classroom. We do like different lessons. And she had a lesson about portals and looking through, like getting like transparencies and looking through looking at your cards through just pieces, holes, or different shapes and things like that. And so I thought about it, I was like, wait a minute, I just got some shapes to look through. So it's just those connections, where it's like, hey, just the synchronicity of happening to get this at the same time that Melissa was creating or showing that lesson, like that lesson came about. So it's just being open to that. Like when you see it, it's like, oh wow, let's put these two things together. And then it will sometimes lead to a new creation, right? Like you made a circle deck, and it's a lot of it's just changing your viewpoint, right? Like it's when you look, it's still the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, but when you look at it just from those circles, it's like a whole new deck.
It is. And it surprised me how much the dynamic changed. It completely, because you're no longer seeing the entirety, like this image that you already know that's the Page of Swords, right? You know it in the back of your mind. But for some reason, just seeing the cloud and his face changes it, not seeing it really hurt me not to have his table, right?
Yes.
It hurt me. And it hurt me because I cut out the supplicants of the the Hierophant and the Devil card, like the people, instead of the faces of the Devil or the Hierophant. And it changed it. It changed it for me. I saw the people locked up and the people in reverence to the Hierophant, instead of this incredibly occult, imagery here. I was seeing more of the people aspect, and it turned the whole deck on an axis that I didn't recognize. And learning with it and growing with this new, it's almost like a new system to me.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
I love it. I know you take no responsibility. I may have to message I may have to message Broken Wing Tarot
Yeah.
because I wasn't following them. And so
Yeah.
I got on their page and started following them, and I may have to DM them and just
Yeah.
tell
Just
them.
be, but you know, where you're going with this in terms of seeing those cards in a new way now through that circle, that's a great way to study tarot, right? Like, what would you, if you could only keep one part of this
That was the
card,
hardest part.
which part would you keep? Which part is the most important to you? Like, that's how these ideas start, and you just keep following them, and you know, maybe it leads to a deck, or maybe it leads to a class or something else, some
And
artwork.
one thing I realized was I used other decks
Mhm.
to, like, say, I mean, we're using your deck, right? And then I pop down a token of this and set him right there.
Yeah.
And this becomes this card, which you already know what is, but
Yeah.
it's also added to this card now. And when I noticed that, I thought, you know, that changed his structure, the structure of the Page of Wands. It changed it. And adding other decks, and then seeing, like, I for some reason I haven't thrown the windows away, like the
You
ones
might
that I
use
cut
them for
up.
something.
I know. Well, I thought, you know, I may have to cut it up and glue it to things, or make this whole tarot vision board thing. You know, like this, I guess to pay, you know, homage to this tarot deck. But if anything, some more art's going to come out of it. And I realized that looking through what I cut out, like now when I flip through the deck, I'm seeing the devil, I'm seeing the face of the Hierophant, I'm seeing the feet of the Star card, and more, I'm getting more details out of those cards as well, without these circles being in there.
Right.
So it changed how I look. And I love that. I love when I find something, and maybe it's a hashtag somebody comes up with on YouTube. Maybe it's something that I see on Instagram, like one of yours or someone else that's inspiring me's creation. And it makes me realize that I don't know everything about the tarot. It makes me realize that the world is so vast, we can't know everything.
Right.
And it's constantly putting that thought back into my head, because, you know, we're humans, and we, you know, we have an ego. So it becomes hard not to get so set in our ways, especially when we've been doing it. Like, you know, you said you've been doing it for what, 20 plus years, the tarot and the oracle. And
I'm still studying though. I always say there's so much there, so many layers there. Yeah.
I feel the same. I feel like even if you've taken classes, even if you're certified, I mean, this is once you commit, it just is a commitment. And once you commit, I love reading new things about it on blogs and listening to other people's perspective. I think that is how we're all going to expand. And I'm just loving that I'm getting inspired lately, and that it's not just about pulling decks out, it's about seeing what you can create, and what the inspiration you get from oracles or tarot is going to do. Like, what's it going to do for you in your life? I think that's beautiful. So do you agree you're going to keep roping out the creations for us? I know your campfire creation hasn't come out yet, right?
No, I'm going to put that in my Ko-fi shop probably. I was going to say either this week or next week. I do have to. That's one that really does need a guide, I think. And when I use the word guide, I'm talking about a very brief guide, just some keywords to get people started, or get people to know just what I had in mind for the card. But of course, you can, take it in any direction that you want.
Yeah, and I do feel like your creations are an intuitive thing, like intuitive creations, like you, especially with the guide that I downloaded for this. It was a paper, right? And I thought, oh, this is not a lot of information, And I thought, but that's going to help me to build my own relationship with the deck. I think that's important too, is to build a relationship with the decks that you're drawn to. Like I've been drawn to this one, and even the other ones, like the soul music that I have, the deck that it's like I want to be able to intuit the message. Maybe I'll listen to the song, but maybe I won't have to. Maybe it'll answer my question just from the title of the song, and I'll go from that. Or maybe it'll lead me to another Marvin Gaye song,
Right.
So I think that it's about the journey. Now, before we end though, because I want to end properly, I'm going to leave all your links below. So go donate on her Ko-fi page.
Right.
Go check out her decks. Go check out her creations. She's got a couple of, don't you still have some classes? Like you've got a class?
Yeah, I have a Teachable Academy. And then I also teach 2 classes on Udemy. Which
are fantastic. Okay. So, and you're doing a priestess, I think, is it a?
I'm a guest instructor in Dr. Vanessa Sage's Sage Priestess certification. And I will also be teaching in her tarot school this year too. So, I would recommend people to jump in there. And I also teach, I'm a guest instructor. This is my 5th year. I think it was 5th year for Pull Pin Paint with Kyla Givehand. And that's a class where we pull cards. Pinning is the journaling, and then painting is really just a creative expression of the cards. So it's really fun.
I'm gonna have to check that out. Do you do that through? Is that via Instagram? Pull Pin Paint?
No, that's a class. It's on Teachable. So you sign up through Kyla's. If you go to her Instagram, you'll be able to connect, or people can ask me. But yeah, so those, like I said, Dr. Vanessa Sage, you can sign up for Sage Priestess certification, or for the tarot school. I think the tarot school's already started though, but Melissa Lucia does the deep play divination. A lot of these are like all year. That's the thing there. So once they start, they've kind of started, but always connect with them just to see, I don't know, maybe get in, but they're just really great classes that connect. Like if you like divination and you like journaling and you like, kind of looking at different ways to use that divination. I think sometimes we think of divining in one way, or using our tarot cards or oracle cards, like this is the way we do it. And so those classes are really great for stretching your mind, stretching your soul, I think too. And and just learning a little bit more. For me, like with what you're saying about my guides, they're always very brief, because to me, the way that you learn a deck is you do readings. You practice, you write them down, you observe what actually happened. How did that reflect your life at that time? How does this? So the seeking process is you in the deck. It's not me. I'm not really involved in that, So to me, these classes help you with that journey as well.
And it's awesome because, like you said, we kind of have a one-track mind when we are into divination. We think, okay, well, it's hard for someone that does only intuitive readings to notice that someone else likes to read about it and not really practice it, or this other person does it a totally different way. And being in a class setting opens your mind up to that as well, that there's several types of readers out there.
Right.
And I think that's just beautiful. So now to end, I want to ask this question. If I were an interviewer, this would be the question that I ask everyone to end this. So before I ask, go check out all the links below. I've got them. I'm going to have them down in the description box. So anyways, Kristen, what do you think the role of the artist is in the world?
To me, it's to inspire, to inspire people to be creative and to express themselves, and also just to inspire more art. Like that's what people don't realize. Public domain is about. Like the whole
Yeah.
point of it is actually to inspire more art, utilize the art that was already created to inspire a whole new generation of art. So to me, and like I said, I don't really consider myself an artist. I consider myself a diviner. But the way that I look at art is as a kind of an inspirational tool in a lot of ways. I look at art as, or as artists as helping us to connect to different parts of us that we really kind of miss out on when you're just going through your day to day. So that's I would say that I try to stay in tune with that, that like spirit, intuition, paying attention to the symbols and the signs. And to me, when I see art, I'm seeing the colors and designs and shapes and things that sometimes get lost when we're just going about our day.
That was beautiful. I think a lot of the same is we put our art out in the world, even if we don't, and someone will find it one day. It will inevitably help if it helps one person to know their own abilities and to get at those abilities somewhere, some kind of creativity. It pulls it out of one person, and you've done it. So I love that, and I feel like your creations are doing that too. You're hitting so many people with your creations, and I'm just looking forward to all the new things you have coming out.
Thank you.
And I am going to continue to stalk you on Instagram to see what all you're doing, because I know you don't sleep. You are popping it all out. So I'm looking forward to that. So I appreciate you coming on to the channel and talking to me today.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me. I had a lot of fun.
I did too. I'm glad that we were able to get all the questions answered, because we tend to go off rail sometimes with me. So I wasn't, I didn't know where this was going to go, but I'm glad that we were able to chat and get all the questions answered. And if we keep getting inspired like this and we keep getting the spark, I'm going to have you back on the channel to talk about some more creations of yours. Okay.
Okay. That sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.